What's up, engineers? Indie Dev Dan here. I have an action-packed AI coding devlog for you today. I'll be commenting over this AI coding session to share insights and techniques with you. We'll be using the best two AI coding assistants, Aider and Cursor, to do all the heavy lifting for us in this new Bun codebase. I'll show you how you can use these two tools together to ship more code in less time. We'll also show off the secret sauce of AI coding. It's likely not what you think. It's not really cool or interesting, but as you advance in your engineering career, you learn that using this pattern will greatly increase your engineering productivity in both speed and quality. So right away, I'm going to share something really cool with you that can help you get up and running with Aider across code bases. Aider has this .configuration YAML file where you can effectively configure anything you can think of. So right now I'm going through enabling Sonnet 3.5, prompt caching. I'm disabling auto commits. I prefer to commit myself. And now I'm setting up something really interesting. I'm setting up this test command and this auto test flag. This hints at the secret sauce, but we'll get into that more later in the video. We're setting up some more flags here. This is a really cool feature Aider has. You can specify read-only files that will not get updated when you're prompting. They won't be included as an option for Aider to update. So I'm adding the README and this conventions file. So what is the conventions file? This is a really interesting pattern that's emerging with AI coding tools. Conventions are rules that you want your AI coding assistant to follow as they're writing code for you. So you can see here, it's just a markdown file, and I'm just going to write a couple bullet points here with details about how I want Aider to write code in this code base. This is the great part about this Aider configuration file. So you can have a base configuration file that you use across code bases, and then you can update it on a per code base basis. So we're creating some project structure here. I created the modules and the tests and the types file. I'm really curious here, how do you like to handle your TypeScript types? Do you have them all in a single file, or do you have them spread across features, logical groupings, or individual components? Comment down below, how do you like to store your TypeScript files in your code base? I've been using this pattern of having a single types file on the top level, and it's worked out really well. It's easy to search, it's easy to find types, and LLMs love that they can find all the types in a single file. So just working through our configuration here, I'm moving the types to the file key value pair, and I'm also adding the index.ts. So now whenever we boot up Aider, we're going to get these files. So little mistake here, I actually misnamed the Aider configuration file. It's .conf, not config. So after we fix that, we can reboot Aider, and now you can see automatically we have prompt caching enabled, and we have our conventions, readme, index, and types files automatically added to our context window. So that's awesome. Now I'm going to update the readme with a reformatted version of our setup. Nothing too crazy happening here. All right, so we're opening up a new window here using my BD alias to kick off the index file, and we got hello via bun, so that's all working great. Now we're going to start setting up our Notion client. So what are we working on here? What are we actually building? We are setting up a Notion API wrapper class. So a product I'm working on right now needs to have support for running CRUD operations on Notion pages. I'm going to run the first Aider prompt. I'm just going to say add main to index.ts. And this is just kind of a standard pattern where you have a main function that kicks off the flow of your application. So we do that, and I'm just going to go ahead, run that. Aider's just going to immediately suggest that command. So we ran that, and something really cool happened there. Due to our auto test flag, Aider automatically ran bun test after our prompt. This is a really, really powerful pattern. As we progress in this AI coding devlog, you'll see exactly how impactful that can be. So we're going to go ahead and create a couple additional files here. We're going to create our Notion module, which will hold all of our logic for our Notion wrapper class. We've added both those Notion files to our context window here. So now we're going to update Notion and create our Notion wrapper class, right? So this is going to be a simple prompt that initializes our Notion class that we can reuse across the lifecycle of the application. So just firing that prompt off here. We are, of course, using Sonnet 3.5. There's really no other model to use for top tier coding results. You can see here we have a brand new Notion wrapper class. So this looks great. Now it's time to start setting up our tests. So I'm running an update command for our tests, and basically we just want a simple bun test that is going to run get page for us. So we're firing that prompt off, and you can see that test automatically was run thanks to our auto test configuration. So it is mocking a lot of code in that test. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to move our Notion page ID into that test file. So when you're building on Notion, when you're using the Notion API, you always specify Notion page ID. And in order to use this in both the test and the rest of the application, we're just going to go ahead and move that into our brand new constants file. So this is really cool. I was able to prompt Aider and just ask for a brand new file. We have an error here. This before each doesn't exist, needs to be imported. And this is just something that was missed. So Aider automatically asks if it can, fix the change. I said yes. And it went ahead and fixed that particular issue. So we're running into another issue here where Notion page ID is trying to match the resulting ID, which is not what gets returned there. So what I'm going to do here is manually run this test again and just print out the result. And what I'll do now is ask for this code to get updated, ask for the test in particular to get updated, and then I'm just going to paste in the response blob, right? So I don't really care what this test validates against. I just want it to validate against something, right? So I'm going to pass that object into Aider, and it's going to update the test and basically just fix it. So, validate against something more legitimate. So you can see there now it's checking against page, emoji, icon, and the actual title of the Notion page. So that's great. I deleted a couple items there. We only need one of those to really validate the test. So now we're going to update our index.ts. Notice this pattern that I'm reusing, right? In the beginning, I say update or create, and then the file, colon, and then I specify what exactly there, in that file or files we want to change. So right now we're going to update our index.ts, and we want to create some type of CLI application where we can run multiple commands to test the different pieces of our Notion API wrapper. So we're going to use Commander for that. This is really nice. Bun is asking us if we want to, Aider is asking us if we want to automatically run bun add Commander, which is the CLI package. We went ahead and said yes. For some reason, it also generated this get page list method, which doesn't exist. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that up here. This is, I think, one of maybe two hallucinations throughout this AI coding session. So, all right, so we're going to remove this get page list. This is going to be a simple prompt. I'm just going to say remove get page list, and it doesn't exist anywhere else. So it's just going to drop it from the index.ts. You can see I've modified index.ts, so I need to reload this file. There's the updated version with our brand new Commander CLI application. So that looks great. Again, we're using this AI coding prompt pattern. You say the action and then the file, and then you describe what you want to happen in that action, right? So I'm saying create add text. I'm using a function-like syntax here. This is really important, specifying the TypeScript type of our parent block there. And I'm also saying update the test as well, right? So this is really cool. Aider is doing all the heavy lifting for us here, updating multiple files at the same time. All we did was create, a 2-sentence prompt, maybe, really like 1.5. So this is great. Again, I want you to really pay attention to this pattern here. 2 tests automatically pass. We just created a new test. Our code is getting validated with every single prompt we're running. And, we're just getting started here. We only have 2 methods, but that pattern is already doing a lot of work for us. So you can see here in the Notion page, we have our add test actually creating a new Notion block for us. And here I'm going to try to run 2 at the same time. Getting a little conflict error there. I'm not even sure that's the right bash command to run back to back, but nevertheless, we have our new add command working great. And I am kind of flipping back and forth between Notion and our CLI application, mostly just to show you. I'm using another keyword here, this mirror keyword. We've talked about this in previous AI coding devlogs, but it's super useful for replicating patterns. And here I'm just going to say, we want a delete block command and function. So we're going to get that updated in our CLI and in our Notion.ts Notion wrapper class. I noticed that it did not create a test for us. You can see there are still only 2 tests. So I'm just going to quickly reprompt and say, create a test for deletion. Again, you can see this pattern doing a lot of work for us. After every prompt, it's running every test. Our code is getting automatically validated for us. This is the secret sauce of AI coding. It's very likely that in the future we'll have a bunch of AI coding testing agents that will use tests to validate that they're working properly, right? So how do you know that your code is working? And what's the fastest, easiest way for a LLM to know that they did the right thing? The feedback loop of LLMs and agentic workflows is a massive kind of open question. There's a lot of value there. And if you can crack that, your agentic workflow becomes so much more powerful and your product becomes so much more powerful because your AI agents can self-validate. So this is going to be a pattern that we're going to see in AI coding assistants moving forward. The ability to create tests to validate the code that they just wrote. is incredibly powerful. All right, so what are we doing here? We are updating our CLI application. I just want some usage docs, some usage comments above every single method here. And you can see I'm using the hashtag symbol here, pound symbol. Aider caught that as an error and is automatically fixing it for us. It knows we're in JSTS land and we need // I go back and forth between Python and TypeScript all the time, so a little bit of language blurring going on there. And now I just want to test out this delete block command. So I'm going to copy this block ID in Notion. And after we run this, so we're going to get the actual ID, which is just the final segment here. And after I run this, we should see that block get completely removed, right? So just walking through with that usage command, shout out to cursor tab feature. And there we go. That block has been completely deleted. So now we know that that is working. Our test automatically validated that for us, but it's nice to see things visually. And now we're going to keep moving. So what's next? We have this really great structure and pattern. We have kind of 3 levels. One is our actual Notion wrapper class. The other is our tests. And then the top level is our index CLI application, right? So we have kind of one central code level and then 2 above it that effectively just validate that it works properly. So we're going to update our Notion test file, and we want to test this case where we want to add a block that has a parent. I'm asking for a new test for this, since it'll just reuse the add text function. So we're going to move our mock parent ID to our constants file. We'll see that automatically pop in there from Aider. Awesome. So we got that automatically written. And again, you can see our automatic tests validating everything we're doing. We can see that new test was created and validated. If we search all, our mock parent block ID will take us right to that test. I'm just going to run this test by itself. You can update, you can use the .only function on your tests to run individual tests. You can also just update the Aider configuration file to run only the test file that you're working on. So say you're working on a new feature, you don't need to run every test, right? That would be a lot in some code bases. In some code bases you'll have hundreds of files. You don't want to be rerunning that with every prompt you run. So, you can dial it in, focus in on just the feature you're working on. It's a high output pattern to rerun all the related tests after every single prompt. So now we're going to fix our example docs. So you can see there we have this like a line 25, line 15, this Notion-CLI. This is the second hallucination. I just want to kind of remove that. I don't want that to be Notion CLI. I want it to be bun run. So you can see there that got updated, at least mostly, and all of our tests reran. So we've got 3 methods working right now. That's great. we are missing a big one, right? We now need a read all method. So, get page blocks, which will get all of the content from our Notion page. So this is a tricky function. As you'll see, we actually need to not only get the blocks, but we need to, for each block, get the correct type of the block. And potentially, if the block has children, we need to also recurse on each block. So we'll get to that one step at a time. We're going to run a multi-file prompt here, create a new TypeScript type, and we're going to create a brand new method. So I asked for 3 files to get updated here, and Aider is going to update every single file. We're kicking off our tests. You can see we have 5 tests running now. And now we're just going to inspect our getBlocks function. So you can see there it's only pulling in paragraphs, which is something we're going to need to address, but we did miss our get page blocks on our index.ts command level. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that. I didn't actually, explicitly add that into the update portion of my prompt. So Aider listened and it didn't update that file, right? If we run that, get the results out of that, I'm actually gonna add it to the clipboard here. You can see this is what our get text looks like. So you can see we're missing a lot of text. That's because of what I mentioned earlier, right? We're only parsing paragraph items. So I'm looking through the Notion examples to parse text from any block type. So we don't just want paragraphs, we also want URLs, we want embeddings, we want math equations, we want code blocks. And in order to support this, I'm going to go ahead and first off add this code in a new docs file. So this is another AI coding pattern that you can utilize to add documentation, right? So basically this is just a markdown file that contains, docs or code or both surrounding a specific topic, right? So I'm adding a new read-only file. This is really cool. In Aider, you can add read-only files. So it's never an option to update that file. And I'm going to add parse content.markdown into our read-only file context. I created this new Notion utils file. And now I'm going to say update Notion utils. I want to implement the code inside of our parse content markdown file, right? So I want that block parsing functionality inside this Notion utils file. So this is a pretty powerful prompt. We're really digging into the value of AI coding, right? The ability to read large pieces of information much faster and then write the code again much faster than you or I, right? Doesn't really matter if you're pushing out 150 words per minute with no mistakes. The AI coding assistant will be able to outcode you. So you can see here, our Notion utils got updated and it's looking pretty good. We're looking through the changes here. We're going to want to make a couple tweaks to the type. It's only storing the block ID and the text. And as you can see on line 87, it's actually storing the text and the type together in this weird string. So we're going to update that. We're going to say update the simple block type to include a new key value pair. You might be asking, why didn't I just manually add that? Well, as you can see here, we're updating multiple files now based on that one addition, right? The test got updated, the top level index file got updated, and the actual code itself got updated, right? And then after all that, every single one of my tests ran, right? So you can see here, I'm coding with AI faster than ever before. I'm also validating the changes faster than ever before because Aider is effectively operating as both an AI coder and an AI testing agent. So I hope you can kind of see all the value that I'm getting out of this tool right now. Here's another great feature. It just coded an error. It noticed that, and it immediately fixed the error. I actually don't even know what went wrong, but there was some linting error and it resolved it immediately. So, we're reducing cognitive load. We're reducing the amount of decisions we need to make on a micro level so we can focus more on the macro level, right? So here you can see I'm printing out all the blocks once more. We don't have any empty text blocks anymore, but we are getting this weird output format where we're specifying the type, and we don't have any of our nested items, right? So all of our nested blocks basically were ignored. So we're going to go ahead and fix that here. You can see in the search, none of our nested items are getting picked up. That's because in Notion, you need to recurse underneath a specific block. So we're going to make that change right now. We're going to, again, we're using this same pattern. You want to say update, and then you specify the file or files, and then you say what exactly you want to have changed, right? So now the prompt, the AI agent, the LLM is localized, it's scoped to this specific block of code, right? Or this specific file or files. So I'm updating to say, this parse blocks method should return our type. And if it sees has children equals true, it needs to recurse and call itself again to get all the children underneath it. So again, this is something that would take even the fast engineer quite a bit of time. And this is something that you'd kind of have to walk through manually to make sure you're getting all the logic right. I'm not doing that, right? I'm asking my AI coding assistant what I want. I'm waiting. I'm reviewing the changes, validating it with tests automatically, and then I'm moving on. So you can see here, we have a error here. We updated the type. It's not going to return a string. It's going to return an object now. So Aider picked up on that. It asked if it could make the fix. I said yes, of course. And now it's making the fix. It's rerunning all the tests. And it's automatically validating that change, right? I know I keep repeating this, but engineering, coding, building products is all repetition. It's about doing the right thing over and over and over and getting yourself locked into these patterns that make it hard for you to do something wrong. You can see there we now have our nested content, which is awesome. And we have every single one of our nested blocks is now showing up in our output. I'm going to make another change here. We are missing the parent ID. So I'm just going to come into Aider here using that same AI coding prompt pattern, update Notion utils, and then I'm saying, I only want the text block to be the block content. And I guess it's in a future prompt where I add the parent ID. But this is going to clean up the text so that we're only getting the actual block contents, the block text content. Awesome. So I'm using cursor here to locally update this file. The way I like to use Aider and cursor together is I like to use Aider for my big multi-file changes across the codebase in a specific context setting. And then I use cursor for, as you'll see here, I like to use cursor for in file block specific code changes, right? So I use cursor to kind of dial in to a change. And I use Aider to make multiple changes across multiple files over a longer session. And of course, you can use cursor to do both, but I find that Aider has higher accuracy and it's a lot simpler and concise. So here I'm going to update the Notion utils once again. And I'm also going to say update the types as well because we need this new block ID. And that's it. So I'm just saying add parent block ID, right? And again, Aider updating both those files. And again, Aider via the auto test configuration, running all my tests. A lot of validation happening here, a lot of engineering happening kind of automatically, if you will, right? So you can see here, we now have our blocks in JSON format, thanks to that cursor prompt. And we also have this parent block ID. So now we have this really clean flat array with the parent block ID specified when they exist, and when they don't, they're null. So this is fantastic, right? Our Notion API wrapper is fully alive. We can read, we can write, we can delete. We're doing a lot in a small amount of time. So we're going to make a couple additional changes here. I'm going to say update Notion. We're going to update tests. We're going to update index. We're looking for an update block command. So, right now we have create, delete, read. We need to finish the CRUD and make sure that we can actually update. So I randomly forgot here that we could update text using the Notion API. So I just asked Aider using the /ask command if that was possible. So it was kind of a dumb question. It definitely is possible. Just kind of like had a brain glitch here. It's another kind of cool way you can lean on your AI coding assistant. Just ask a question at random. And now I went ahead, made that change, updated those 3 files. And you can see there it created that brand new test, should update block. If we crack open that test, you can see it looks pretty good. I want to update the initial text here, so I'm using a cursor prompt for that, cursor selection prompt. And I just want it to be a little bit different, and then I wanted to assert that it wasn't that value. So just being a little particular about the test here, and then I added the .only modifier to the tests just to test that one method, right? So that's a quick way to isolate your tests and validate one test. So we got that running. We now can update Notion nodes. So here's a manual test, manual validation. There really is no harm in double, triple validating your code. The only cost, of course, is time. But I'm going to come in here and just use some cursor tabbing to automatically get this CLI command in the right form. And creating a nice update message there. Writing code with AI is crazy, so true. And now we're just going to go ahead and run that command, right? So now we're going to see that block updated. Fantastic. That is up, live, and running. So we're just going to make some updates here, updating the README with some additional documentation, kind of showcasing how things work. So, these next couple of prompts are all about that. I want to comment on Aider versus cursor and this tool versus that tool, that model versus that model. For the time being, at least, thinking of GenAI tools as, one ring to rule them all or one tool to rule them all, it just sets you back. It's much better to think of your toolkit as, a top 3 or top 5 list where you go between these tools. You use them together, you learn the good parts and the bad parts about specific tools. As we said in our previous Aider video, it's really too early to put all your eggs in one basket. It's too early to pick winners. So I recommend, just as a engineering principle, in the age of generative AI, don't pick a single favorite or best tool. Pick, 1, 2, 3, or 4, play with them, understand them, pick out the pros and cons, and just kind of give it all time for things to emerge. Give it time for these tools to emerge. And also, if you see something that's missing in the ecosystem, you can build it. That's the beautiful thing about these AI coding tools. It's never been easier to build out these tools yourself. So you can see here, we now have usage documentation for our brand new Notion API wrapper. That looks beautiful. It's in place. Just kind of doing some code review here. We did all this in, I think, 45 minutes. This is a, part 1 of a 2-part series. There are so many incredible things we can do with these tools, and I really like this AI coding devlog format for that reason, right? I can sit down, write code with AI, and then really reflect and share my process with you. So I am actively building an AI coding course. It's going to contain a crap ton of value for you. It's going to be the most comprehensive, principled, and practical course on AI coding. I want to release it right after the next class of models drop, so I can, include any of the new innovations in AI coding that will happen. So stay tuned for that. I'm really excited to release that to you, for you. That's going to be a big win-win situation. In the next video, we'll push this code base further. If that interests you, like, sub, stay focused, keep building, and I'll see you in the next one.